28 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. Biden's first year a bust. That's the title of a new Fox News op-ed. The author is Liz Peek, and she suggests that Mr. Biden should make some, well, let's just say, New Year's resolutions for the sake of the country. And here to tell us what they are is Liz Peek herself. All right, Liz, I'm going to just give you the microphone. Rock and roll. Give me those top 5 resolutions that Mr. Biden ought to consider very strongly.
Good morning. I'm happy to do that. Number 1, he needs to fire somebody. When your White House is sinking like a rock, you need to show the country that you also are not happy with the way things are going. Obviously, someone should have been fired over the debacle in Afghanistan. Whoever it was who chose to close the Bagram Air Base and make all the people leaving the country go through a crowded and unsafe airport, that person's head should have rolled immediately, but it's not too late to show the country that Afghanistan, the loss of 13 service members, was unacceptable. Number 2, he needs to get out from behind his teleprompter. I am tired of hearing the president say, no, they're not allowing me to talk to you, or I'm going to get into trouble if I talk to the press. Talk to the press. You need to have some press conferences, Mr. President. You need to be unscripted and show the country that you can handle the give and take of normal reporting. This is ridiculous. You're the president of the United States. And by the way, if he's not able to do that, he should resign. Already, nearly half the country thinks that the president is not up to the task of the office. Well, show us that that's wrong. Let's hear more from the president, unscripted.
Yeah, let me jump in there before you wrap up your list there. I just got to share this quick soundbite. A lot of people saw it. I think it bears repeating. Listen to what the president, well, let's just say, said during an interaction that probably will go down in one of, well, maybe in history. Listen to this with his wife, Jill, Dr. Jill. Just a second. Listen to this.
President, can you pass voting rights with the Senate filibuster in its current form, do you think?
I can talk to you about that later. I'm sorry, this is the last question I'll take, and I'm really going to be in trouble. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff, and I understand you guys may have some questions.
I think we're going to clear the press first.
Okay, so what you saw there was obviously the numerous times that he said, I can't talk, or I gotta move on, they're telling me not to keep going, or who is they? I mean, you're the president. I mean, I'm trying to figure out who tells you what you can. You're the boss. You're the one who should say, I'm going to talk to the people. I'm going to talk directly to the American people, and I'm going to tell them what I think about a variety of topics and not be sort of maybe held back by my handlers. All right, I interrupted. I apologize. Go ahead. You finish up your list, Liz.
I think that's exactly right. It's an embarrassment. Number 3, watch more TV, read more newspapers, get in the flow of what's actually happening in the country. The other night, when there was a call-in show, a Christmas show, with the president and the first lady, someone from Seattle said, let's go, Brandon. Biden actually repeated those words and said, I agree. Does he actually not know what that phrase means and why it's being used so widely across the country? Joe Biden has said, I'm not following the polls because they're not very good. He should be following the polls. He should be knowing what voters think and why they're angry on so many different issues right now. It's appalling that he seems out of touch about inflation, about the southern border. I actually think his news is being filtered, and he needs to be better informed.
Hey, Liz.
Number 4, drop the divisiveness. He campaigned on bringing the country together. Polling shows people think we are more divided now than we've ever been in our history. Only 15% in a recent survey said, yes, they thought the president could do that. Well, when he blames Republicans for everything that's going wrong, or Trump, who's no longer in office, for everything that's going on, or when he talks about not being vaccinated, being unpatriotic, that's not a way of bringing the country together, and he needs to work on that much, much harder. And finally, Kevin, I think it's time for the president to show a little love for the United States. I'm tired of him telling us that we have a systemically racist country and that we have to rewrite our history and that the white supremacists are in charge of everything going wrong. come on, man, as he would say. I don't believe that. I think we have a country offering opportunity to all, and I wish he would say that occasionally.
Liz Peek joining us, Fox News contributor. Great column, very interesting stuff. And I mentioned the video of that caller from Oregon, the Let's Go Brandon. That is certainly going to go down in history. Liz, thanks as always. We appreciate you spending time with us this morning. Todd, over to you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.